However, as they say, if nothing is risked, nothing is gained. And when the stakes are high, the only optimal approach is to take calculated risks. But risks will have to be taken. Now by risk, I don't mean only action, but also the willingness to invest and lose money, if required. And if in the interest of securing knowledge and learnings. You might be surprised to know that this program called the Indo-German Watershed Development Program, which was quite well known and in fact was the basis for setting up the Watershed Development Fund in Nabad, and which also had significant impacts on the policy level in India. In that program, the German GTZ, the German agency, there are two German agencies funding that, the GTZ and the KfW. The GTZ funding the capacity building program through WOTR, and the KfW funding the full implementation program to Nabad. Officially, at the capacity building phase, the GTZ allocated as much as 20% of the funding resources for what was called Risk or Innovation Fund. When we asked them what exactly does that mean, the unofficial reply, which was in fact also written down finally, was if after due diligence you attempt to do something which failed because either it was innovative or because circumstances changed substantially, you can write it off without being held accountable for in the negative way. Can you imagine what that simple thing did? It unleashed a tremendous burst of creativity and innovation, which of course grew the program from a few hectares to hundreds of thousands of hectares, and led to the development of new, innovative institutional mechanisms. So there is a precedence. We must be willing to apply this precedence in crafting our response to climate change programs, adaptation programs. And the good thing is this, precisely because that freedom was given, at the end of the program when we calculated how much of that money was in a way wasted, in inverted commas, it was not wasted. How much of it went in a way waste or did not meet its objectives, we found it was only 3%. Now 3% when we were allowed 20%, when that risk-taking mentality was statutorily approved and officially mandated, immediately not only did accountability increase, but much more intensive knowledge and systems were put in to ensure that innovative attempts were processed, accompanied and documented. It's very interesting because when you take a conservative approach, you actually end up very often with far greater waste than you hoped you would avoid. And that is an attitude and a frame, a mental set that my submission is would have to be adopted in any adaptive program that is sought to be taken up now. Maybe 20 years from now we need not have that, but certainly now we would need to have that. The third implication is precisely because the challenge is so complex, we can no longer indulge in the luxury of doing sectoral or one-line interventions. And an agriculturist cannot say, it's enough that we change our cultivars, we improve our agriculture practices, we improve the resource use of water, and the matter is solved. Out of the question. Because now agriculture itself is dependent on soil health, it's a development of water availability, it's dependent on livelihood use and resource use. In other words, we would have to take a systems approach to addressing this problem. Human beings, as you know, and their societies are rather dynamic, constantly changing and forever full of surprises. The method we will have to adopt will have to be a systems dynamic approach towards solving this problem. Which of course means, and this is my last implication, is we'll have to launch a massive capacity building program. Not only for people, not only for the villages or for the service delivery providers or agencies, but also for the institutions through which they will operate. Let us not underestimate the challenge or the difficulties that institutions can pose in implementing their own given mandates. And that comes because human beings are very slow to change. We loathe movement, we love inertia, but that's the natural law of gravity anyway. We will have to launch major programs in building up the capacity of all levels of society, not only practitioners but also policy levels, and reorganize the instruments we use to deliver resources, particularly the institutions. And at this moment, I recall that when I shared with you in the morning that a significant pilot program that is being supported by both STC and NABARD on climate change adaptation. Prior to this, for about 2 to 3 years earlier, WOTR had to reorganize and retrain its staff. And I can assure you it took us at least 2 to 3 years. And it was a massive effort, which was supported and accompanied by the STC at that time. And 2 major challenges were experienced. Number 1, apart from the mindset, which I had mentioned earlier, mindset change, we had to introduce technology-enabled systems in the organization. And believe me, it by itself, it poses a very major challenge. And the next thing was to introduce management practices which led to resource optimization, also called lean management. Now these are challenges that cannot be underestimated, but these are challenges which will have to be overcome if we are going to have any meaningful and substantive response to climate change adaptation. Thank you very much.